And you're still watching channel, in fact, SABC News at 8, right on channel SABC News, channel 404. We're bringing a special interview, this between the SAFA COO as well as SAFA President, SABC COO as well as SAFA President Jordaan, following the announcement that the rights to broadcast Bafana matches should or should not stay at the SABC. And unfortunately, we've heard earlier this evening that they have gone to a new broadcaster. So I want to bring in our guest right now, Dr. Jordaan. Thank you very much for joining us, as well as you, Motsoeneng. Thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Jordaan, let me start with you immediately at the top right there. The rights have been awarded to a new broadcaster, so to speak. What does exactly that mean in as far as what we knew as Bafana or SAFA matches broadcast in South Africa?
Well, as you may know, that traditionally and up to the recent past, our terrestrial free-to-air rights resides with the SABC in terms of a current contract, and that contract runs until April of 2015. So as we speak today, that contract is in place. We did not renew with SuperSport, and we've engaged with CIA. Then we concluded an agreement with CIA, which becomes operational as from May of 2015. And therefore, as we speak now, we have a current contract with the SABC and a contract with CIA, operational 2015.
Current contract with the SABC, it runs out next year. So as of May next year, whoever wants to watch television as far as free-to-air is concerned will have a problem. Maybe I should bring our COO in that matter. Mr. Motsoeneng is going to a CIA, a new broadcaster. What does that mean for the Joe soap out there who does not have satellite television, for example, if the rights have now gone to somebody else, because the SABC is who they depended on to see those matches?
I think I need to explain how broadcasters we deal with all the rights. There are two issues that I need to deal with. Is we can take a decision as SABC to sub-license to whether it's SuperSport or any broadcaster. But the existing contract between us and SAFA is we have bought terrestrial rights, which is free-to-air rights. That contract is still existing until next year. We are going to negotiate a new contract, free-to-air contract with SAFA. So I don't want to talk about the third party. What I'm focusing on is SABC. Yesterday I mentioned that there's no way under our leadership that we will lose those rights to any broadcaster. Mm-hmm. Our focus is to make sure that our own people, remember this is sports of national interest, so public at large, they will be able to see Bafana. This is what we are going to do, and this is what we agree with SAFA to say, let's look at the interest of people. So we are not interested on pay TV, we are interested on terrestrial rights, which here is SABC, your radio, your television, all those platforms. But remember, you also have digital media. Those are the issues that we are going to negotiate with SAFA to say, SAFA, here we are ready for terrestrial rights, and they will give us the first option to discuss such issues and renew that contract.
So in short, if I'm understanding both you gentlemen sitting in front of me, South Africa has never, well, the SABC never necessarily lost the rights, because the rights, as Mr. Motsoeneng is explaining them, were terrestrial anyway. The rights are now...
Yeah. I think the issue is very clear, that in any match that is being broadcast, there is hardly an example where the match is broadcast only on one broadcast channel. You know, you broadcast the World Cup. That match, every match in the World Cup, went to 206 broadcasters all over the world at the same time. For Bafana, you could watch Bafana on SuperSport or on SABC. And therefore, the signing of an agreement with one broadcaster does not mean the exclusion of another broadcaster.
So is it fair to say that
what the SABC has made quite clear is that they are interested in securing the terrestrial free-to-air rights beyond the term of the current contract. Now that clearly is a matter for, as the COO has expressed, a matter for negotiations and discussion.
Then the question comes in, Dr. Jordaan, as well. We've all seen the figures thrown around as far as how much these rights cost. We know that you're not in the business of actually coming out and saying this is how much we sold rights to, especially because it's of national interest in terms of Bafana. We're looking at, is it a business decision that was made by SAFA? Because you are in the business, again, of making sure that you run a solvent business.
Well, you see, you have to balance. On the one hand, football is a business. On the other hand, football is the passion of the overwhelming majority of the people of this country. And the football base, by and large, are the poor and the unemployed. And therefore, whilst you have to take a decision, focus on revenue maximization, it must not be to the exclusion of the majority. And we said we will not be taking such decisions where all of a sudden the people of the country can no longer see Bafana on free-to-air terrestrial rights. And the COO said that if we agree that that is the base, then it's a process of sitting down, negotiating, and of course the COO of the SABC is conveying the position of the SABC, and I'm sure that CIR is listening. We will engage CIR and say, this is the position, how do we work together to find an amicable solution? But yes, revenue is part of the package, and we are happy with the deal that we've concluded and the revenue as a result of that.
Hlaudi, I'm going to come back to the very same question. I mean, fair enough, the SABC would not be able to fork out, if estimates are correct, and what we're hearing, R1 billion in as far as rights are concerned. I don't think the SABC, to be honest, will be able to afford that as a public broadcaster. There's a lot of things that drive this company. Beyond that, the people of South Africa now sitting at home and saying, Ish, what do we do now? Will the SABC, Hlaudi says we'll still be able to see it on free-to-air. What guarantees, if any, can we give, as I said, Joe Soap Msinga, who wants to watch an under-20 play, the Banyana played at next year's World Cup in Canada, the African Women's Championship in Namibia?
I don't know what guarantee are you talking about, because this is a guarantee. This is what we are saying with SAFA, that we are going to make sure that we negotiate and finalize our contract with SAFA. SABC, we are not going to negotiate with any broadcaster. The relationship is between us and SAFA. And between us, we'll finalize contracting between the two parties. So there is no way that we're going to lose those rights. What is important, the guarantee is between us and SAFA, we are saying people will be able to watch Bafana or Banyana.
And obviously the platforms that SABC provides, as far as SAFA is concerned, that's something that you cannot lose per se as well. I mean, 18 radio stations across all languages of the country.
No, that's why I say always in business, it's a balance. You cannot, particularly in sport. Sport is a business with a social conscience, and therefore you must take into account, we are not selling cars or gold. You are engaging in an activity of human beings, and therefore you have to take into account all of those factors. The issues that you've raised in respect of the African Cup of Nations for women, first of all, those rights reside with CAF, and I'm sure the SABC will negotiate those rights. Our two matches that we have, the match against Sudan in Khartoum and the match on the 10th of September in South Africa against Nigeria. Those matches are covered in terms of the current contract with the SABC. So there is no panic as from tomorrow. The matches will not be on SABC. Those matches will be on SABC. As I've indicated, there is a contract valid until April, and as the CEO has indicated, SABC is interested in continuing that relationship, and that is subject to negotiations, which will, of course.
Mr. Jordaan, not trying to shoot down, the new broadcaster. We're not sure. We can't judge them. They don't have a track record. Not trying to shoot or talk them down. Are we comfortable, as far as SAFA, giving rights of this magnitude, of national interest, to maybe, if I can say, an untested entity? I think that's probably the other question a lot of Cyphers are asking.
No,
who is this?
The matter, as it relates to matters of national interest, is the matter as it resides in the free-to-air terrestrial space. That is that position. So that is separate to asking the question of the commercial or business case of the broadcaster. Now, it's not for me to answer those questions. I'm not representing CIA, but safe to say that we made our own analysis and we were comfortable that this is a partner that we can conclude. You must remember, as I just said a few minutes ago, that ANN7 just a few months ago had to answer the same questions, and ETV had to answer the same questions. Those were new companies. So I'm not in a position to respond on behalf of CIA, but simply to say what we have to do, and we have the fiduciary and governance responsibility to, as far as we can, to examine the business case, and that we've done.
But maybe also just from SABC side, I don't know where is this notion coming from to say SABC we don't have money, because we've got money. I mean, it's how you do business. Some of us, since we came here, the SABC, you have 24-hour news channel now today, because we've got money. So this notion of SABC can't afford ABC, it is just nonsense, because we are able. We have put strategy in place to make sure that we find a way of making sure that SABC is sustainable financially. So it is not true that SABC we can't afford.
Yep.
We can afford is how do we put a strategy in place, which we have already put strategy in place, and financially we are sustainable SABC. Yep. So there's no question about SABC. I mean, we are a company around 7 billion. I mean, if you talk about 1 billion, what is 1 billion? I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah,
I'm not saying we're going to pay 1 billion those rights, because we negotiate. We also make sure that we also generate revenue from advertisers, from sponsorship, from funding. So those are the issues. So people should get away from saying SABC we can't afford. Mm-hmm. That is not true.
Because in fact, Babsi, when you look at the pronouncements over the weekend, especially as well as you, Dr. Jordaan, they were speaking about SABC losing it because of the money. But as you two gentlemen have explained, it's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the terrestrial rights, which they still carry.
No, but you see, first of all, what was said over the weekend is not the consequence or the product of a press conference by either CIA or
yourselves.
SAFA. We also read it in the paper. I mean, I read it in the paper, and it was brought to my attention for the first time by the COO of the SABC when I was in Cape Town to say there is this thing flying around, and of course I was in a meeting, unfortunately, and said I will come back to him and talk about the matter, and that is why we're sitting here today. If that didn't happen, probably we would have gone on with our business and talked to the SABC up until the point, and CI up until the point where we can make announcement, and now we must explain things that is due next year, 8 months away.
But Motsoeneng, final word from the SABC. When could people get the final signatures as far as the two of you are concerned with this deal? I know time is not a factor, but we're talking about May next year, and it is just around the corner.
You know, normally when I negotiate, Dr. Jordaan knows that I don't negotiate for more than 2 hours. So I'm not going to give you exactly when, but I'm not going to negotiate more than 2 hours. We will finalize the deal.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for speaking to us in this live, interview, broadcast, special interview with the two of you, Dr. Jordaan, President of SAFA, Hlaudi Motsoeneng, the Chief Operations Officer right here at the SABC, speaking to us on the recent deal, or the pronouncement rather, that the rights for Bafana matches have now left the SABC and have gone to a new broadcaster. But as we've heard, it's been promised that nothing's changed. Free to air will still be able to view all those matches pending the deal that these two gentlemen sign off.